I think the main thing for students to remember really is that when they're actually writing, they should have a purpose to what they're writing. So they need to be writing for an actual audience, and they've got to have something to say. So in that sort of idea, they need to be communicating an idea that's backed up with evidence. So they need the old idea of an introduction, a main body or discussion, and a conclusion. So roughly speaking, the introduction should be about 10 to 15% of the overall word count, and then the real discussion is going to be between 70 and 80%, and then obviously the conclusion is your remaining 10 to 15% of the word count. I'd say really there are three common mistakes. The first one would be that sometimes students will start writing the essay without having a really clear idea of why they're actually writing it. So they won't have an argument that's well formed out, and that sort of impinges on the idea that they won't know what evidence they're going to select to back up that argument. So not having an argument means that the essay can be very loose in its structure, and it doesn't flow well, and it's not discursive really, so points don't link from one to the other. The other big one is that a lot of students don't actually plan their work, so they just launch into the actual writing without actually taking the time to sit back and think, well, what is my argument? What do I want to say? What evidence am I going to use to back that argument up? And how am I going to present that so that I can really convince the reader that I know what it is that I'm talking about, and I've got a good grasp of what the question is actually asking me to do. And then the final one is proofreading. So they sort of forget that writing is a much more iterative process, and they will often just present a first draft as a final draft. So it's getting them to realise they need to rewrite, redraft, edit, amend, and really make sure that their writing is very tight and not be frightened of working into what it is that they've produced. I think those three things would be to make sure that they plan it and that they have that argument and they proofread it. But another really good thing for students is when they're reading journal articles and books is that they're actually quite critical and looking at how that is actually produced. So they're not just reading for the content, they should start reading. So if students are struggling in particular with structuring and with communicating their ideas, they need to start analysing how professional writers actually do that, and to pick up the tips and to really sort of pull that writing apart to get a really good idea of how it is structured and how it communicates the ideas.